we mentioned, Lisata is a Nasdaq-listed company, and as all Nasdaq-listed companies, I will be reminding you that I'll be making some forward-looking statements during the course of my presentation, and I'll ask that you please keep those in mind as we go through the presentation and as you take investment decisions. So let me start with a brief overview of Lisata. We are a clinical stage therapeutics development company working in the area of solid tumor cancer. We're looking to develop and commercialize a targeted penetration enhancement technology that will improve the efficacy of co-administered anti-cancer drugs for the treatment of these solid tumors. We have a very very seasoned management team with successful international drug development experience. We have strong intellectual property protecting our technology and our products, which extends well into the next decade. And if we have some fortune with our new applications, could extend into the 2040s as well. Importantly for investors, we have a number of product and business development milestones projected over the next year to year and a half, which all could create significant value for the company. And we have a platform technology that we believe has already been validated by the fact that we have a number of external groups that have become partners with us, and I will describe those in a moment. But perhaps most important during these very difficult financial times is the fact that we have cash that is projected into 2026, funding all of our development programs through to data. So as I mentioned, our management team is very well experienced. I'm not going to spend much time on this slide. I invite you to look at our biographies that are available on the website, lisata.com. But suffice it to say that collectively, we have approximately 2 centuries of development experience. And as individual contributors, we have participated in the development and registration of more than 75 products around the world, many of them in the field of oncology. Similarly, our board of directors is well experienced and in fact renowned. And once again, I would ask you to look at their biographies on our website. So why are we working in the area of cancer, which many people consider to be a very crowded space? Well, the simple answer is that this is an area of extremely high and continued unmet medical need. Most people know that cancer remains the leading cause of death in most countries around the world. But I think what is not well known is that more than 90% of the newly diagnosed cases of cancer are in fact solid tumors. And these are the cancers that have very poor prognoses, very short lifespans after diagnosis, and they're listed at the bottom of the page. So we have addressed the problem of suboptimal treatment of solid tumors with a new technology. And the challenge for treating these tumors is twofold. On the one hand, it's based on the morphology or structure of the tumor, where these tumors create a physical barrier of cells around them called the tumor stroma, which consists of tumor cells, tumor vascular endothelial cells, and other cells. And this barrier prevents the effective penetration of anti-cancer agents of all types into the tumor. In addition, the tumor expresses an immunosuppressive microenvironment, which means that it hides the tumor from your innate immune system and also makes the administered immunotherapies that much less effective. And in the past, the way that pharmacologists have tried to overcome these barriers is through brute force by adding a lot more drug into the system to create a stronger concentration gradient and to force more drug into the tumor. But that generally leads to intolerable off-target side effects. And in fact, many patients end up not tolerating the treatments in the long run and stopping and succumbing to the disease. So we've taken a number of findings in the area of medicine and biochemistry over the last several decades and combined them to create a new technology that utilizes the C-end rule active transport mechanism to create a specific targeting and penetration mechanism for solid tumors, as well as to address the issue of this immunosuppressive microenvironment. And our lead program, certepetide, is in fact an agent that does those things. Certepetide converts the tumor stroma from a barrier to a conduit. It combats resistance and metastases by depleting the immunosuppressive T cells in the microenvironment, enhancing the concentration of cytotoxic T cells, and actually inhibiting the metastatic cascade. And what is quite interesting is that certepetide's mechanism of action is agnostic to the modality of the companion anti-cancer drugs with which it is administered. So we can administer this with chemotherapies, radiotherapies, immunotherapies, adaptive cell therapies, and so on, and still expect the same improvement in efficacy. So based on the fact that solid tumor prevalence is growing, and that, in fact, by 2030, pancreatic cancer is predicted to become the second most common cause of cancer mortality, and the fact that we have so many of these cancers where there has been limited or, in fact, no advancement in treatment for several decades, we have developed a two-pillar development strategy. On the one hand, we're pursuing a rapid global registration in pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma, initially combined with gemcitabine and nab-paclitaxel chemotherapy standard of care. And for that, we've actually completed the enrollment in a large phase 2b trial, which I will describe momentarily. In parallel, we have a number of proof of concept, that is 1b/2a studies underway in multiple different types of solid tumors in combination with a variety of standard of care regimens to demonstrate the broad applicability of certepetide across the oncology landscape. As I mentioned previously, we have a number of partnerships. On the R&D side, we have partnerships that provide us with resources and, in fact, in some cases, capital, but do not take any commercial interest in our product. And of course, we do have a commercial partnership with China, with Qilu Pharmaceutical in China. They have taken the exclusive rights to certepetide in the greater Chinese territory, and they are mirroring our development plan. They are already in phase 2, and we have collected $15 million in milestones from Qilu to date, and we have quite a few millions of dollars of additional milestones available to us based on continued achievements in development, regulatory milestones, and ultimately royalties on sales. But what's also quite, I think, attractive is that we have the ability to make a number of additional partnerships based on indication, modality of the co-administered drugs, and/or geography, making certepetide as attractive commercially as it is medically. So I'd like to describe how the product works. It is actually fairly simple, and it's based on the work of Erkki Ruoslahti, for whom a Lasker Prize was awarded just 2 years ago. And it starts with certepetide, which is a 9-amino acid cyclic peptide with a very high binding affinity and specificity for alpha V beta 3 or alpha V beta 5 integrins, which are significantly upregulated on the stroma of solid tumors. Once certepetide is bound to those integrins, it is subjected to proteolytic cleavage, forming a 5-amino acid C-end rule peptide fragment, which, when it dissociates from the integrins, almost instantaneously, selectively, and with high affinity binds to an adjacent receptor called neuropilin-1. And when neuropilin-1 is activated, it initiates the C-end rule or CendR transport mechanism, which is manifested by the formation of grape-like microvesicles on the surface of the cells, which then percolate through the stroma, depositing their payload deep into the tumor. In addition, the presence of certepetide in the tumor microenvironment turns what we would call cold tumors hot, that is, making them more susceptible to your immune system and to any co-administered immunotherapies. It also inhibits the metastatic cascade. And there's a couple of slides here that would demonstrate that very, I think, elegantly in animal models. This is a nude mouse model with a pancreatic cancer, a human pancreatic cancer tumor implant. And you can see when we co-administer fluorescent quantum dots and an etching solution. And the mouse on the left, you see nothing. And that's because the etching solution quenches all fluorescence in circulation. But when we add certepetide to the experiment, you see all of the quantum dots, and therefore all of the fluorescence is concentrated in the tumor, showing how elegantly certepetide provides targeted tumor penetration, regardless of what with which it is co-administered. And then there are more than 350 scientific publications which consistently show that certepetide in combination with any modality of anti-cancer agent in any solid tumor model demonstrates an improvement in the efficacy of those co-administered agents. But I think what's most important is what happens in people. And here are the results from our phase 1b/2a trial, which was done in first-line metastatic pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma patients at several sites in Australia. And we first and foremost showed that certepetide was very well tolerated and had no dose-limiting toxicities, and that the safety of certepetide plus standard of care was essentially the same as the safety of the standard of care alone, meaning there were no additional adverse events. But what we did see was a tremendous increase in the efficacy of the standard of care due to the presence of certepetide, better seen here graphically when we show a 55% improvement in median overall survival and a 76% improvement in median progression-free survival. And in the words of the investigators involved with this study, these are considered breakthrough, unprecedented improvements, and something that provides them with great enthusiasm and great hope for the eventual availability of this product for treatment of cancer patients around the world. But for us, what was also very important was the fact that for all of the other efficacy endpoints in the trial, there was a consistency of directionality. That is, all of the appropriate responses improved in the presence of certepetide. We also had some further justification for our enthusiasm based on, this is a single patient case study for a patient with gastroesophageal adenocarcinoma who was given only a few weeks left to live after having gone through a number of courses of radiotherapy, chemotherapy, and immunotherapy with really only a partial response. But after the addition of certepetide to their treatment regime, after several more treatments, we saw a complete response in this patient. And that, I think, gives us, again, further evidence that we can combine certepetide with almost anything in almost any solid tumor and expect an improvement in outcomes. We've got a very, I think, efficient and strategically directed regulatory strategy. And as a result, we've already received fast track designation from the FDA for pancreatic cancer. We've also received orphan drug designations from FDA and the European Medicines Agency for pancreatic cancer, as well as from FDA for malignant glioma or brain cancer and for osteosarcoma. And in addition, we have a rare pediatric disease designation from FDA for osteosarcoma. And I think most of you realize these are more than just regulatory benefits. They provide us with actual commercial benefits in terms of exclusivity in the marketplace, the opportunity to perhaps have a rare pediatric disease voucher, which could in and of itself be worth over $100 million, and the possibility for accelerated approval, priority reviews, and rolling reviews. So as a result, we have a very comprehensive development plan here. The first product listed here, or the first study listed here, is the ASCEND study, which is the previously mentioned phase 2b trial. 158 patients, double-blind, placebo-controlled, randomized, and powered for efficacy. This is a seminal trial for the company and the indication, and we expect to have data for this announceable in the fall of this year. So that'll be very important to watch. But in addition, we have a number of other trials that are moving forward very rapidly in cholangiocarcinoma, both first and soon to be second line, as well as colon appendiceal cancers, non-resectable pancreatic cancer, brain cancer, and of course the trials from our partner in China, from Qilu. So things are moving along very well, and all of our trials are in fact designed to be completed and report data by the end of next year. So we'll have data coming out at a fairly regular pace beginning this fall and continuing through most of 2025, all of which should provide the opportunity for significant value creation in this particular marketplace. We are a very financially stable company with, at the end of the first quarter, over $43 million reported on our balance sheet. We have no debt, and we continue to project cash runway into 2026 with enough money to complete all of the currently ongoing or planned studies through to data. And so I think we represent a very interesting and, in fact, compelling investment theses today. Unlike most small cap companies which are trading below cash, we actually have plenty of cash to get us through our clinical milestones. We have a very well-developed and capital-efficient development plan with strong partnerships and strong regulatory recognition. We have a promising asset that's based on a strong body of compelling data. With this rational and focused development plan being run by a highly experienced management team and a fiscally stable company, we think we represent a very attractive opportunity for investors. And so I would just repeat what we said at the beginning: seasoned management, strong intellectual property, many milestones to create value over the course of the next year to year and a half, a strong capital situation, and already partnerships in place with many others possible. We would hope you would consider making an investment in Lisata and joining us as we work hard to change the paradigm of treatment for people with solid tumor cancer. And I thank you for your attention, and I will stop sharing now and answer your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Masso. So the first question coming from Ruth says, what's your growth strategy besides existing countries and regions? Any other markets that you would like to enter?
Well, our program is designed to be for global registration, and typically in a global registration program in the pharmaceutical industry, you start with the biggest markets first, which are North America, principally the United States, Europe, and then certain markets in Asia, and then you spread to the rest of the world. We have not yet begun work in Japan, and certainly we will be doing so at some point. The China's market is taken care of by our partner, and we're now looking at expansion into Latin America and other countries in Asia to ensure that our development plan will allow us to maximize registration possibilities throughout the world.
Next question from Tom. When does the company expect to receive the next set of milestone payments from their partnership with Qilu?
There are a number of small milestone payments that are due over the course of the next year or so. And by small, I mean, around in the single-digit millions of dollars. The next large target milestone, which would be $10 million, is due to us when Qilu begins phase 3 in China. We don't have a specific date that is for them to announce, but our expectation is that that could come as early as late 2025.
Next question from Paul P. Is that the trials where to look promising, but what's the current burn rate and runway with the existing funding?
Well, as I said, the runway is into 2026, so we have approximately 2 years of capital on the balance sheet. That's enough capital to fund all of our trials through to completion. And as I mentioned during the presentation, we will have very interesting and important phase 2b data coming to us at the end of this year, which will still be more than a year away from our currently projected cash out date. So I think we're in a very good financial position.
Final question from Jacob. Your share price seems to increase about over 20% over the past month. Any reasons why?
There are a number of reasons why, but I think it's mostly because people are noticing the progress that we've been making. We've been steadily announcing, clinical milestones, including regulatory milestones, execution milestones, etc. And also because I think people have finally looked at the fact that we are roughly within the 4 to 6 month window to very important data. And this is typically a time when investors start to get involved in a stock because it generally represents a good time to make an investment at a lower price in anticipation of a big value inflection.
Great for your insights and answering all the questions. Thank you, Dr. Masso, for giving us a great update on Lisata today.
Thank you, Gilbert, and thank you to the audience as well. Take care.
Thank you.